It's a pleasure to be able to share some Divrei Torah with you over this new forum, this new website, fivetowncentral.com. Hopefully, a new venue which will unite the community even more. This week's Parsha, Parshas Korach, we have a very interesting debate between Korach v'Hadassah and Moshe Rabbeinu. But what I want to focus on is a comment which is less well known, which comes from the Mata Moshe, one of the Gdolei HaPoskim. We all know that the Ramah tells us when it comes to Havdalah on the Motti Shabbos Kodesh that you're supposed to overflow the kais so that it falls to the floor, the Ramah says. The reason most poskim give is because you want to show that this is a siman bracha. Look how much wine, look how much bracha I have in my home. I could overflow. But the Mata Moshe says something very cryptic. He says, make sure it overflows, the wine spills to the floor, to the ground, so that it goes to Korach v'Hadassah. Now, what does the wine during Havdalah have to do with Korach v'Hadassah? Perhaps we could get greater insight into this by focusing on another comment, which is more well known, but also very cryptic, and that is, we know that Korach began his entire machlekes with Klal Yisrael with a very strange claim against Moshe Rabbeinu. Chazal tell us, Hilbishan talisay shakul and chelas. They all came in front of Moshe Rabbeinu with talesim, where donning talesim that were all blue, all chelas. And they asked Moshe Rabbeinu, does such a thing need tzitzis? Does it need tchelas? Moshe Rabbeinu said, of course, such a thing. Every beggar needs tchelas. So they started making fun. Moshe Rabbeinu, I don't understand. If one little string of tcheles could remind me of the Rabbanan Shalom is doimel yam, doimel rikia, doimel kisei hakavod, so why would I need, if I have an entire beged, which is tcheles, so certainly that should remind me of the Rabbanan Shalom, I shouldn't need a string of tcheles. And while we know this was the claim of Korach, we don't know what Moshe Rabbeinu's response was. What did Moshe Rabbeinu in fact respond? Says Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, after all, it's an interesting claim Korach made. Why should one need tcheles on a beged of tcheles? So what was the response that Moshe Rabbeinu gave him? Furthermore, why this specific area of Torah, tcheles, or mezuzah, as Korach claimed? If I have a mezuzah on a home, that suffices. But if I have a home which is full of bayis malei svarim, I still need a mezuzah. I have a full svarim shrank of svarim over here. I have shelves and shelves of svarim. Why should I need mezuzah? There's so much Torah in the house. What was the point? What was the deeper insight that Korach was trying to claim against Moshe Rabbeinu, and what was Moshe Rabbeinu's response? The Steipler explains beautifully. The Steipler says, what was Korach's claim? Korach's argument was the following. After all, can't a beged of tcheles remind me of the Rabbanan Shalom? Yes, it certainly can. But we can't rely on a beged of tcheles to remind us of the Rabbanan Shalom. Moshe Rabbeinu responded to Korach, when you have something which is servicing Avodas HaKodesh, when you have something which is there for a spiritual elevation, it has to be specially set aside, kuloi kadosh, entirely restricted, entirely servicing an aliyah, an elevation, a spiritual elevation in ruchnias. It can't be something which is servicing me in the realm of gashmias, in the physical realm, and also going to service me in the spiritual realm. You're right that clothing, could remind you of the Rabbanan Shalom, but clothing has another purpose. It keeps me warm. It makes me look good. So therefore, we can't rely on that when it comes to reminding us of the Rabbanan Shalom. Svarim also, they service me. I gain information from them. It has to be something which is designated specifically to remind me of the Rabbanan Shalom. A mezuzah, I get nothing out of. It just reminds me of the Rabbanan Shalom. A tcheles, it's not there to keep me warm. It's not there to cover me. It's there strictly to remind me of the Rabbanan Shalom. What Korach didn't understand was this separation. That you need to sometimes be mavdil ben kodesh lechol. There are things which are there to service our mundane needs, and that has to be kept separate from things which are there to service our spiritual needs. Certain things are there for the mundane needs, and we could try to elevate them through ruchnias, but it can't be that we rely on them solely. It has to be that there are certain things which are there specifically for our spirituality. And this, in fact, was Korach's entire claim. Korach says, Koila Eida Kulam Kedoshim, we're all holy. What was Korach arguing? He was arguing, why do we need a Shevet Levi designated specifically for service in Beis HaMikdash? We could all do it. We'll all work for most of the year. After all, how many days a year did a kohen serve in the Beis Hamikdash? 2 days a year is maximum. So for 2 days a year, you take off from your job and you go service in the Beis Hamikdash. Why do we need to set aside an entire shevet to be kuloi kadosh, to be set aside? They don't work, they don't partake in any part of the society. Why do we need that? Let kula am kulam kedoshim. But this was the answer. Sometimes, in order to maintain a certain level of kedusha, something has to be totally set aside from anything else. It can't be there to service any other need. It can't be engaged in any other part of society. It has to be entirely kadosh. Korach had a problem making this havdalah, making this separation. He had a problem being mavdil between what's kadosh and what's chol. And therefore, during Havdalah, we come and we give the wine to Korach Vadaso, showing them that what their chisaron was. They understood, yes, you're right, Kol Am Kula Kedoshim. But you need a specific shevet, which is designated specifically Kadosh, set aside from the rest of society. Throughout the Parsha of Korach, we see references to Havdalah. We see Hibadlu mitoicha eda, Moshe and Aaron are told. Hibadlu, separate yourselves. We see Boker v'yoda. Rashi tells us, what's Boker v'yoda? Korach had a hard time separating between Kohuna and the other Shvatim, just like there's a separation between day and night. Korach's problem was that he couldn't make this distinction. There was no difference between a regular Jew and a Kohen. He couldn't see the difference between Kodesh and Chol, the difference between different levels in Kedusha. And this is something important for us to remember as well, because in our lives, of course, we're engaged in society, we're engaged in the world around us, as we should be. But there has to be an element of our lives, either specific times in our lives, different years in our lives, or even in our day-to-day, within our day-to-day, that we set aside to be Kulon Kadosh. Those hours, whether they be in shul, whether they be in the Beis HaKnesses or the Beis HaMedrash, those hours are set aside for me to develop my relationship with the Ribono Shel Olam, so that when I go into the greater world, I have that chutshot cheles. I have that hour that I spent specifically with the Ribono Shel Olam, with nothing else in my mind, either learning or davening, and that will permeate throughout my entire day. That will influence my entire life, even when I'm not in the Beis HaKnesses, even when I'm not in the Beis HaMedrash. And with this message, we'll be able to understand, appreciate the Havdalahs, the separations of life, how to create time, how to create moments in our life which are kuloi kadosh, and that will influence our entire lives. I wish you all a good Shabbos.